Can they get high enough? Hey guys, and welcome back to another Random Distractions video. This is a continuation in my series of the Arendal 1723 S THX tower speakers and how they compare to other speakers. So far I've compared them against my own speakers, which are the Arendal 1961s and some Focal Sopra 2s. As I mentioned before, I'm part of an AVSForum group. I'll have a link in the description below if you're in the DFW area and would like to join. But I reached out to them, and a couple of folks took me up on the offer to bring the Arendals around to them to see how they compared against what they had. So the next one that I went to was to a user by the name of Kohthoga, and he had two different models of Klipsch. The first one being the RF7 Mark IIs, and then also the Klipsch Lascalas. I've heard of the Lascalas, but that's all online and, just seeing images and stuff like that. But this was actually the first time that I would get to hear them. As a reminder, I wanted to keep some of the parameters the same, so I will again be using my Peachtree Carina to power the speakers. I first play a couple of different songs just to kind of get a feel for their speakers, and then I use the same one song to do the actual recordings. That song is played at the same volume on the Peachtree, which is going to be -20 rather than trying to match the speaker levels. But I thought that this would be a good way to show the sensitivity and how that plays a part. Klipsch is known for having higher sensitivity ratings, so this should be interesting to see. For this session, the recordings and the REW measurements are going to have the Arendals being in ported mode. Alright, so first up are the Klipsch RF7 Mark IIs. And now the Arendal 1723S, again in ported mode. And now for the Lascalas. Alright, so now let's take a look at the REW measurements from that song. Alright, so here we have the Klipsch RF7 Mark IIs and now the Arendals. There are some differences, especially after 1.5 kilohertz. I have heard that Klipsch speakers tend to be brighter because of the compression horn that they use in the speakers, so that may be the cause of that. There's also more bass at around the 42 Hz range, which made sense since it does have 10-inch woofers compared to the smaller woofers in the Arendals. And there's also some differences around the 235 to around 885 Hz as well. Before I move on, I did get a recommendation to show the psychoacoustic smoothing, so I'll do that next. I currently have it set to 112, so let's take a look and see what psychoacoustic smoothing looks like. You can see those same differences here, and it might actually be a little bit easier to see. So switching back over to 112 smoothing, I'll turn off the Klipsch RF 7s and turn on the Lascalas. Yeah, there does seem to be a difference here. I'll switch over to the psychoacoustic smoothing. And while they do have these two dips here, which may be caused by the room, it's actually pretty linear. They also start to drop off around 107 Hz. The one last thing I want to mention is that I do believe these do a great job of showing how efficiency can play a part in your system. As a reminder, I left the volume knob at -20 on the Peachtree for all three of these. So the Arendals are rated at 89 dB. The RF7s are rated at 101 dB, which is a 12 decibel difference. And the Lascalas, from what I could find, is 105 dB, which is a 16 dB difference, and 4 more than the RF7s. Based on that information, you can see why there are differences between the speakers, especially the Lascalas. Although I would have expected the 12 dB difference of the RF7s to be greater than what the Arendals were showing. Those are the measurements, but what did Kohthoga and I think? I started to wonder whether I would prefer a brighter speaker. And granted, I only listened to them for about 10-15 minutes. So as a test, when I got home, I went to my Anthem MRX 1140, and you have the ability to adjust the bass and the treble. So I adjusted the treble as high as it would go to kind of mimic a brighter speaker. And of course, maybe I could have played around with it for a little bit more. But after around 30 minutes or so, I started to get kind of fatigued, and so decided to set it back down. In their normal setting, I can listen to them pretty much non-stop. Honestly, I've probably heard them for over 2 hours one time, just listening to music at pretty high levels as well, and there's no issue at all. Granted, I don't know if it would be different with the Klipsch. Maybe their brightness is a little bit different than what the Arendals are with that high treble. And like I said, I could have adjusted the treble maybe a little bit less, but I just kind of wanted to get that same feeling and see how that would go. So back to the listening impression. So when I asked Kohthoga what he thought, he did prefer the Klipsch over the Arendals. And because of the 10-inch woofers, the bass was a little bit more responsive, as we did see in the REW measurements. And as a third-party observation, he asked his teenage son to come and listen to them. And he hadn't heard them before. I mean, maybe he heard the thumps or whatever from downstairs. But when he came up and I played both of them, he also preferred the Klipsch as well. As for the Lascalas, those things are just a different kind of beast altogether. Just to put it in perspective, the RF7s, when I was recording the audio, the listening position was probably about, I don't know, 8 feet or so. And for the Lascalas, we actually were about maybe 12 to 15 feet away from them, and they were still that loud when they were coming through on the audio recordings. And even though in the REW measurements that we saw, they do start to drop off after about 107 Hertz, it wasn't really that noticeable as far as for music, so you didn't really feel like you were missing too much. Based on the test at home that I did in regards to the treble, I'm not sure that I would like a brighter speaker, but it was interesting to hear how different that sounded. Well, that's all that I have for this video. Next up, they're going to be going up against some Definitive Technology speakers, or DefTech for short. So I would definitely appreciate a like, of course, on this video, but make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when that next video drops. Until then, I hope you have a good one.